Honda spent a rumored $225 million building this motorcycle. Each one reportedly cost $100,000 to make, and they sold it for $27,000. This is the Honda Rune, and it may be the most expensive mistake Honda ever made. It's one of the most beautiful motorcycles ever built, a rolling sculpture powered by a giant flat-six engine. Honda poured everything into it: genius, artistry, and a fortune. And then it flopped, spectacularly. This is the story of why. The Rune wasn't really a motorcycle in the normal sense. It was a concept bike, a show stand fantasy, that Honda made the astonishing decision to actually build. And building a fantasy for real turned out to be brutally, ruinously difficult. Every detail was obsessive. The exhaust silencers were cast using a lost wax method, usually reserved for fine jewelry. The finish was flawless. This wasn't engineering for profit. It was engineering for pure, uncompromising art. And art like this costs. This is the story of how Honda built one of the greatest motorcycles it ever made and lost a staggering fortune doing it. The story of a masterpiece that Honda, in the cold light of the balance sheet, had every reason to regret. To understand the Rune, start with the Valkyrie. In the late 1990s, Honda took the flat-six engine from its Goldwing Tourer and built a muscular cruiser around it. It was a hit, a big, smooth, powerful machine with real presence. But Honda wanted more. The American cruiser market was dominated by Harley-Davidson and its lucrative custom scene. Honda wanted a slice of that world, a machine so bold, so beautiful, it would stop people dead in their tracks. So Honda's American design team began a series of radical concept bikes. Between 1998 and 2003, they created a whole family of them, the T-Series, and took them to motorcycle shows, gauging the public's reaction to each wild idea. At the 2000 Long Beach show, they unveiled a trio of concepts, and one of them, the T2, stole the entire event. The crowds were mesmerized. Honda's own employees were bowled over by the adoring reaction. It was a sensation. But there was an enormous catch. The T2 didn't actually run. It was a pure styling model, a beautiful, static design experiment, never meant to move under its own power. It was a dream, not a machine. And that's where the trouble began. Because Honda made a decision almost no other company would dare. Overwhelmed by the public's love for the T2, they decided to build it, to turn that non-running sculpture into a real, rideable production motorcycle. The gamble had begun. The T2 became the basis for the production Rune, and the engineers were handed a nightmare brief. Take this pure styling exercise and make it work, cool the engine, pass safety laws, actually ride without ruining a single line of the design. At its heart, they used the Goldwing's mighty 1,832 cubic centimeters flat six, but they gave it attitude, 6 individual throttle bodies instead of 2, new camshafts, and a remapped ignition. This was a Goldwing engine, transformed into something with serious muscle. The result was around 118 horsepower and an eye-watering 123 pound-feet of torque. This was no soft show pony. The Rune had genuine, tarmac-tearing performance, a work of art that could actually move. But here's where the concept to reality nightmare shows. The T2's beautiful radiator slits were only ever designed to cool a fake 20 to 30 horsepower engine. Now they had to cool a real one, making 118. To make it work without changing the look, Honda had to engineer the radiator from an ultra-conductive, expensive alloy, just so those pretty slits could shed enough heat. This is the kind of costly problem that hid behind every gorgeous curve. Then there was the front suspension. Instead of conventional forks, the Rune used a rare, complex, trailing bottom link system. It looked spectacular and worked beautifully, but it was elaborate, unusual, and hugely expensive to design and build. The whole chassis was bespoke, a long, low frame, a single-sided swing arm, shaft drive. Though based on the Valkyrie, the Rune shared so few parts with it that it was, effectively, an entirely standalone, handcrafted machine. Every surface was obsessed over: a teardrop tank, sculpted Art Deco bodywork, deep, flawless chrome, 5-spoke cast wheels. The Rune wasn't assembled to a price. It was crafted to a standard, the highest standard Honda could achieve. And astonishingly, Honda built it on a real assembly line at its plant in Marysville, Ohio. Not a hand-built one-off in a design studio, but a genuine production motorcycle, one of the most ambitious ever attempted by a mainstream maker. When it launched for 2004, the reaction was awe. Reviewers ran out of superlatives. They called it rolling sculpture, a concept bike brought impossibly to life. Nobody could quite believe Honda had actually built it. And then they saw the price. The Rune sold for around $24,000 to $27,000. And here's the thing, reviewers were shocked at how cheap that was. For the sheer quality and detail on display, a machine like this could have cost far, far more. That was the fatal irony. The Rune was a bargain because Honda was selling it for a fraction of what it cost to make. $27,000 sounds like a lot, but behind that number lay a financial catastrophe. Because according to widely repeated reports, each Rune cost Honda around $100,000 to build. Some accounts put the total development bill at a staggering $225 million. The numbers are almost unbelievable. Do the math, and it's brutal. If each bike cost $100,000 to make and sold for around $27,000, Honda may have lost something like $75,000 on every single Rune it sold. Every one. A loss leader on an epic scale. And they didn't build just a handful. Estimates suggest up to around 3,000 Runes were produced. Spread that rumored loss across 3,000 machines, and you begin to grasp the scale of the financial hit Honda absorbed. Worse still, the sales themselves were sluggish. Despite the awe and the eager crowds at shows, actually selling a $27,000 Honda Cruiser proved hard. Many Runes lingered on dealer floors, unsold, for a long time. In fact, Honda reportedly kept selling leftover, unsold inventory for years afterward. Some Runes weren't shifted until as late as 2008. A bike that cost a fortune to build, sold at a loss, and then struggled to sell it all. A perfect storm. Given all that, Honda's decision was inevitable. The Rune was discontinued after just 2 model years, 2004 and 2005. A machine that took roughly 6 years to develop was killed off after barely 24 months on sale. The regret was written into that timeline. From a pure business standpoint, the Rune made no sense at all. Enormous development cost, a massive loss on every unit, slow sales, a 2-year life. If you judge it as a normal product, it was a disaster. So why did Honda ever do it? And here's where the story turns. Because the Rune may not have been meant to make money at all. It may have been something else entirely. A statement. A demonstration. Honda flexing its creative and engineering muscle for all the world to see. This is what the industry calls a halo product. A machine built not for profit, but for prestige. To prove what a company can do. To draw crowds to showrooms, and to make every other bike in the range glow with a little of its reflected glory. Honda knew a machine this stunning would pull people into dealerships. They'd come to gawk at the Rune, and maybe leave with a Goldwing, a Valkyrie, or a Shadow. As pure marketing, as a magnet, the Rune arguably did its job brilliantly. It also sent a message to Harley-Davidson and the whole custom world. Honda could out-design, out-engineer, and out-build anyone if it chose to. The Rune was a flex of pure capability, a boast cast in aluminum, steel, and chrome. And by that measure, it succeeded completely. We are still talking about the Rune today, decades later. It burned itself into the memory of everyone who saw it. That kind of lasting impact is exactly what a halo product is supposed to achieve. So did Honda regret it? That depends on how you look at it. As a product that had to turn a profit, absolutely, it was a financial bloodbath. As a marketing statement and a point of pride, it may have been worth every penny. But there were real practical regrets too. Those exquisite lost wax cast headers, fragile and nearly irreplaceable today. That ultra-conductive radiator, exotic and costly. The Rune's beauty came with genuine engineering headaches that never fully went away. Because so many parts were bespoke and low volume, servicing and repairing a Rune could be a challenge. Owners today treasure them, but also nurse them carefully. Many of the most beautiful parts were simply never made in large numbers. And the styling, though stunning, was polarizing. Not everyone loved that radical Art Deco look. Some found it too extreme, too futuristic for a cruiser. In a conservative market, bold design is a gamble, and it didn't win everyone over. It was also huge, heavy, and impractical. A long, low, single-seat machine that prioritized looks over everyday usability. Beautiful to behold, but not the sensible, do-everything Honda that buyers usually reached for. It broke every Honda rule. That's what makes the Rune so extraordinary. Honda is famous for practical, sensible, profitable machines. The Rune was the complete opposite, an emotional, impractical, unprofitable flight of fancy. It was Honda going, for once, completely berserk. Reviewers marveled that Honda let its designers stray so far outside their usual boxes. Released from the constraints of cost and practicality, those designers created something genuinely magical. But magic, it turned out, came with a devastating bill. And then something interesting happened. The commercial flop slowly became a cult classic. The very rarity, the very extravagance that hurt Honda became the source of the Rune's enduring, growing legend among collectors and enthusiasts. Values began to climb. A machine that once sat unsold on showroom floors became a sought-after prize. Clean, low-mileage Runes now command strong money, some selling for well over what they cost new. The tables have completely turned. Today, the Rune is displayed in museums as a work of art. It's celebrated as one of the boldest, most beautiful motorcycles ever mass-produced. The financial disaster of 2004 has become an icon of design courage. Time has been kind to it. It has a passionate community of owners who adore these machines. They understand exactly what they have, not just a motorcycle, but a piece of history. A moment when a giant, sensible company chose beauty over profit, just once. And crucially, it's genuinely good to ride. Underneath the radical looks sits that superb flat six, smooth, torquey, effortless. As tractable and easy to ride as any Honda. It's not just a pretty face, it's a properly engineered motorcycle. That flat six gave it real muscle, strong low-end torque, effortless roll-on power, that unmistakable smooth six-cylinder character. For all its showbike looks, the Rune could genuinely perform. It was substance wrapped in spectacular style. In the end, the Rune stands as proof of something remarkable, that when Honda truly unleashes its designers and engineers, with no compromises, it can build almost anything. Even a concept bike fantasy, made fully, gloriously real. But it's also a cautionary tale about the price of ambition, about what happens when passion outruns profit. The Rune is a monument to both the glory and the danger of building something purely because you can, not because you should. Every clever, costly solution on the Rune tells the same story. A team refusing to compromise a beautiful design and spending whatever it took to make it real. That obsession created a masterpiece and a financial wound Honda would feel for years. The hard truth is that the Rune could probably never have made money. The costs were simply too high, the market too small, the price ceiling too low. It was, from the start, an act of love and pride, not a rational business decision. And that's why Honda has never really done anything quite like it since. The Rune was a one-time explosion of creative freedom, so costly it likely taught Honda to be more careful. We may never see the company take a swing this wild again. So the Rune is a beautiful contradiction, a triumph of design and a failure of business. A machine Honda should regret, and one it can be immensely proud of. Both things are true at once. And that's exactly what makes it so fascinating. Its legacy has outlived its losses. The money is long spent and forgotten. But the Rune endures, admired, collected, and celebrated. In the long run, the machine won. The regret faded, and the legend grew. That's a rare kind of victory. For a company built on practicality, the Rune was a glorious act of rebellion against its own nature. Honda forgot to be sensible, just for a moment, and in that moment, it created something no sensible company ever could. Look at those flowing lines, that seamless Art Deco sculpture, and you understand why the designers fought so hard for it. This wasn't styling bolted onto a bike. This was a bike shaped entirely around a vision of beauty, pure and uncompromised. Even now, a Rune stops traffic. Ride one and people stare, point, and ask what on earth it is. Few motorcycles have ever had that kind of presence. That, in the end, is what all that money bought, an unforgettable, one-of-a-kind machine. The Rune reminds us that not everything great is profitable, and not everything profitable is great. Sometimes a company builds something simply because the world deserves to see it. The Rune was one of those rare, magnificent, foolish things. Genius and folly, wrapped in one gorgeous package. That's the Rune. A machine that answers a question nobody quite asked, at a cost nobody could justify, with a result nobody has ever forgotten. Honda's most beautiful mistake. It set a benchmark too. The Rune proved a major manufacturer could build a true factory custom, a production bike as wild as anything from a custom shop. No one had ever done it quite so completely. In that, the Rune was a genuine pioneer. It changed what people believed was possible from a mass production line. It showed that the big Japanese makers weren't just about sensible, efficient transport, that they could dream and dazzle and create pure automotive art when they wanted to. With only a few thousand ever made, and many now carefully preserved, the Rune is genuinely rare. Each surviving example is a precious artifact, a physical reminder of the day Honda chose, just once, to build a dream regardless of the cost. And that rarity keeps rewarding those who kept the faith. As the years pass, clean Runes appreciate, sought by collectors who recognize a modern classic. The financial loss was Honda's. The lasting value belongs to the owners. Cast your mind back to 2004, when it first appeared. Nobody had ever seen anything like it roll off a real production line. It was, quite simply, astonishing. A glimpse of what happens when engineering skill meets total artistic freedom. Maybe that's the final word on Honda's regret. Yes, it cost a fortune. Yes, it lost money on every bike. But it created something timeless, unforgettable, and beloved. Some regrets, it turns out, are absolutely worth having. The name Rune means mystery or secret, and that's fitting, because the real secret of the Rune is that its greatest failure and its greatest triumph are the very same thing. It was too good, too pure, too expensive to ever make sense. The Honda Rune stands as one of the most beautiful, ambitious, and costly motorcycles ever built. A financial regret and an artistic triumph. Proof that sometimes the machines that make no sense are the ones we remember forever. A non-running concept made real. A rumored $250 million gamble. A huge loss on every sale. A 2-year life. And a legend that only grows. That is the strange, magnificent story of the Honda Rune. That's the real story. Honda regretted the Rune not because it was bad, but because it was too good to ever be profitable. They built a masterpiece, lost a fortune, and gave the world something unforgettable. And honestly, we're all richer for it.